So in this week's Arrow episode, a certain mysterious character returns for the title of the Demon, and that was pretty awesome. And Oliver goes through absolute hell as inmate 4587 on level 2. Let's talk about this week's episode. What is up, Vigilantes? My name is BobaTalks. Welcome to an Arrow review. Now, this is for Season 7, Episode 5, titled The Demon. And finally, this episode, we find out who the Demon is. And I'll get to that in just a second. But another solid episode from Arrow. What more can I say? We got some cool Curtis moments with Diggle and Argus. But mainly, even though some people are saying, like, okay, the prison stuff is cool, but slightly getting a bit tired of it now, I'm just starting to feel a little bit that way. But every time you kind of ponder that, it's like, oh wait, but this is so awesome. Oliver being in Slabside and on level 2, and especially in this episode when he's with the Demon, if you will. It was just such a spectacular episode, and it feels like Arrow, and I say this at, I feel like the beginning of every single one of my reviews, that I just want to talk about that ending or something towards the end, because Arrow this season so far, every episode seemed to be pulling off some kind of surprise, at least during the episode, but also just some cool action sequence or something like that towards like the last 10-12 minutes of the episode, and that is exactly what we got. But before we get into this breakdown and review, guys, if you want to see more Arrow videos just like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and of course, if you go on to enjoy this video, hit that like button, as it really does help this video get out there. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about Curtis going undercover for Argus. Now, we've seen this in some of the earlier Arrow Season 7 trailers, but what I really liked about this is that Curtis kind of had this arc this episode where, and it's been kept up for a little while now, but ever since Oliver went behind bars, he put that vigilante life behind him as well, even though Oliver wanted, there was still work to be done. But, either way, it was really cool because Curtis still went out, he went undercover, he had a couple of fun moments, speaking French. He has, 9 PhDs, can speak fluent in multiple languages. But when the time came in this episode for him to go undercover yet again, that is when he kind of lost his shit to Diggle. And you kind of felt sorry for him because they didn't just make it up for no apparent reason, because Curtis has lost friends, loved ones, and his marriage at the cost of doing stuff like this, essentially going out into the field. Of course, we got that moment with Diggle as well, giving another pep talk this episode, because last episode, if I remember correctly, we had Diggle talking to Dinah. Diggle came in once again and gave that kind of confidence boost to Curtis, and he really came around this episode and became freaking terrific. Literally, when that bomb was being armed and Curtis just kicked absolute ass, that freaking suitcase with the little mini turret came out. Either way, this was really cool. And just really hopefully a development for his character whenever Team Arrow comes back this season. And thanks to Curtis again, just like the storyline we got with him before earlier this season, again, they found another painting with another hidden meaning, or should I say Curtis did, and this is just still slightly giving us a little bit of, or the fans a little bit of bait as to what is really going on with this bigger picture in Argus here. And I feel like that is going to be most definitely Diggle and Curtis's, kind of mission this season, or not necessarily the whole season, but enough for potentially even Diggle to walk away from Argus, I'm betting, when they find out what possible corruption, if you will, is taking place. Now, we need to talk about who the Demon is. I think I made a joke, when Brick said, oh, that you need to be talking to the Demon then, and Oliver ever since then was like, who's the Demon? What can he do for me? Blah, blah, blah. But it actually did turn out that it was none other than Talia al Ghul, which is really cool. She survived Lian Yu, but barely. I liked this explanation. It was fair enough, because what we did hear her say is that she got help from Diaz through the help of one of his drugs. And I don't know if that is the same drug that he was injecting himself with, basically the strength juice, if you will. Because what he was injecting himself with seemed to give him, well, as I just said, strength. He punched that wall. Whereas I'm thinking maybe what helped heal Talia, and you could clearly see burns on her face, and she probably did barely make it out alive. She needed to be probably dependent on a drug, like probably something similar to what Diggle had last season, where, obviously had the shaky hand beforehand and it like helped his nerves and stuff. Maybe whilst Talia was healing, she needed some nerve dampening stuff, neurological painkillers or something like that. I don't know. But we got explanations as well in this episode as to, you know, obviously the demon organized the attacks on Oliver in the first couple of episodes on behalf of Diaz, and she was more than happy to oblige with that with Diaz because after all, you know, Oliver did kill her father. Now, one thing I really loved about Oliver and Talia's relationship in this episode is that they both have plenty of reasons to be annoyed at each other. Oliver obviously is annoyed at her, very much so, for lining herself with Adrian Chase, and ultimately, you know, arguably if she didn't do that, then maybe William's mother wouldn't have died. You could go several different directions there. But then again, whether Ra's al Ghul deserved it, or Ra's al Ghul, whatever way you want to flip and pronounce it, he still did kill her father, despite Ra's al Ghul not being the best dad. It's still family, right? So they both have baggage. But you could see throughout the episode there was this respect for one another still, and I especially feel like that happened, or we got that from Talia herself. I felt like she was really giving off on the screen, especially after the line of, you know, when Oliver said something like, "I used to be your student," and she just kind of kept giving this look of, "I really shouldn't like you right now, but I can't help but like you because of our time in Russia," you know, when she basically more or less created that Green Arrow persona that Oliver, and they pointed that out in this episode, which was cool, kept up with his father's list and here on out until present day. I also I think Talia's excuse for how she actually ended up in Slabside. She said like, "I ran afoul with a foe in Gotham." Now that could be anyone, like someone as random as Bane, or it could be Bats himself, but then that leads the whole Batman debate. It would be really kind of cool if they somewhat legitimized like a Batman and Talia relationship in this world. That was definitely insinuating something to people who know all about Talia and Gotham, or like what business she has with certain characters or whatever in Gotham. Really cool. Just a nice little tease. But, you know, don't look too deep into it because, you know, Batman isn't going to be in the Elseworlds crossover. And, you know, we've got the Batwoman TV show where there's no symbol of hope in Gotham. So where the hell is Bruce? I've got a whole video on that in the cards above, by the way, if you want to check that out. Let's talk a bit about Felicity and Black Siren. So there is one thing that I will always say. And I'm not a Felicity hater. I've never actually been a part of that hate bandwagon that a lot of people have across the years. Like, I didn't particularly mind. Obviously, I didn't like the storyline in season 4, but I've never properly, as I just said, been on board with really disliking her character. But there is always one thing about Emily Bett, or not necessarily even her acting, or just the way she chooses to portray the serious moments of Felicity. I just really seem to get taken out of the scenes where she's trying to act serious. It's like, Oliver has been waiting, you know, just that kind of wobble. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't feel right. I just feel like she's great at acting techie Felicity and everything like that. She's funny. This episode, her and Black Siren were really funny and just brilliant together in trying to help out find, you know, the silencer, because obviously they let her escape at the end of last episode. But, you know, just those scenes, I'm not the only person to think this. I know this. I've spoke to loads of people about this, and I'm sure some of you are familiar. I just can't help but not believe those scenes. I don't know what it is, and I'm sorry if I offend anyone out there, but that is just my opinion. Anyway, it was really nice of Stanley, whether you think that Stanley is up to something secret or not, whether he's a double alias evil guy or not, either way, Stanley filled Felicity in because, you know, evidently we found out that Oliver has no visitation anymore. This led Felicity, as I mentioned, to go along with Black Siren. They were like, what the hell? Oliver hasn't even used up his, you know, maximum security, what is visitation time. So that kind of led their dynamic in this episode, which, you know, I really like those two together. I did feel like sometimes it was just a little bit cringy, like, you know how they just sometimes make things humorous and fun for the fans, I feel, to just do a bit of service when I feel like that so isn't, or maybe it's a bit too rushed for the character. Like, Black Siren was cracking some things out, or Felicity was between each other, that I just felt was unrealistic or too forced at this early part. You could argue that, oh, but Boba, they've been pointing towards Black Siren's redemption for ages and ages. And it's like, yeah, I agree. I would believe that and be okay with it if it was even further down the line. But the way they were just acting together sometimes just felt a bit too like, you're not that, like, pally, come on. So meanwhile in Slabside, really enjoyed these scenes this episode. We had the crazy-ass chief psychiatrist, Dr. Parker, who regards that what he's doing is breaking new scientific ground. You know, know, and a lot of people have pointed out how he's like the Arrowverse is somewhat of a Hugo Strange, and I definitely get where people are coming from with that. Now, the chief psychiatrist is just, you know, to sum him up, you know, he was interesting, but he's just one of those crazies who wants to go really, really far with his medical science achievements, who believes that he would help humanity out with it, but who goes way past obvious ethical lines. A lot of people thought that he would be the demon, which I definitely thought was plausible. You know, what if he was, you know, the guy who is actually controlling all of these patient studies down in level 2. But anyway, moving along, Talia wanted to obviously break out, and Oliver eventually ended up agreeing to help her. And this is what I mean by like that back half part of the episode where just shit got so cool. I loved it. The fight scenes in this were incredible. When Dr. Parker was saying to Oliver something like, you know, inmate 4587, and he was just like, my name is Oliver Queen, and just shouted that out with such freaking Oliver Queen conviction that we've been familiar with from Stephen Amell in the show. That gave me chills. I literally just wrote in my notes, he went effing ham. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I was almost even tearing up when we got to that point, you know, in the hallway. They just beat the living shit out of every single one of them. It was so cool. It was just, thank you, Arrow Season 7 for Episode 5. Just thank you. Now, honestly, as I said, the really special moment of, or the actual special part I take away from this episode is just seeing Talia al Ghul back again, but with Oliver. Going back to the point earlier where she does have this, like, low-key respect for him, because when he like equipped those batons out and she just took one final look at him, and it wasn't just a quick look, she was looking at him just like, that's my boy, that's my student, that's my top student, screw Adrian Chase, before she popped down to escape, and Oliver was, you know, fighting everyone off for her. Absolutely fantastic, enjoyed it so much. Now, more or less at the end of the episode now, level 2 got shut down because Felicity exposed it, or I believe, correct me if I'm wrong there, but because of the USB that Talia got to Dinah, Laurel, and Felicity, they were able to expose Dr. Parker, you know, plus the SCPD records, of course. But that wasn't the only thing that came out of this. This kind of gave us the beginning thread of how I believe, or, you know, it's pretty obvious that Oliver will be getting out of prison, because all of this stuff that they have, maybe some of the SCPD records as well, but that USB that Talia did deliver, you know, faithfully to her word that Oliver asked her to do, this could be a way to unravel Oliver's case and get him out of Slabside. And this could, well, it's probably going to end up succeeding, because we know he's not going to stay in Slabside. This led to them tracking the silencer, who is now where Diaz is, and he has found Anatoly in Russia again, which is just very, very interesting, because I remember seeing from the trailers as well, Anatoly with Team Arrow. So I think that they are going to obviously get him out and save him. Anyway, guys, other than that, I really, really enjoyed this episode. The strongest stuff for me was, as I probably very clearly pointed out, was Talia al Ghul and Oliver, and those amazing choreographed fight scenes in Slabside. But what did you think of this episode? Let me know if you agree with anything I had to say, or if there was other parts that you liked which I didn't even mention. But other than that, guys, subscribe to the channel for more videos and reviews and trailer breakdowns just like this. My trailer breakdown should be up after this video eventually in the day. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, guys. You can click down in the links below to follow me on Twitter and other places like that. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you Vigilantes in the next video. Goodbye.